Welcome to From Rome Info video. My name is Brother Alexis Pagnola. I am the publisher and editor of FromRome.info, an electronic journal for news, information, and commentary about Rome, Italy, the Catholic Church. Making this video from Kyiv in the Ukraine, where I'm organizing Ordo Militaris Catholicis efforts to assist to the defense of Ukraine. I wanted to do this video on masculinity, formation of youth, and what it means to be truly devoted to Christ the King. And this all seems to be various topics that aren't connected, but they're deeply connected. In the West, in the last 400 years, we have seen a progressive decline in Catholic spirituality, an oversimplification of forms, an oversimplification of even the teaching of the faith, the whole idea of what the faith stands for and why Christ became man and died on the cross and rose and ascended to heaven. What was that all about? This has to do with some big historical problems, which if you're not aware of and consider, you won't realize the effect they've had. So the church has been greatly weakened by the French Revolution because prior to the French Revolution, Catholics ruled Europe pretty much. And the church had coercive power. The church had troops, prisons, courts. And that was especially true even before the Reformation, but after the French Revolution, that came to an end. And the church was put under a state of persecution. The church has been in a state of persecution for 222 years, more or less. And that has changed the character of the Catholic priesthood. We do not have Catholic priests today, except in the rarest exceptions, who act like Catholic priests did before the French Revolution. It is considered wrong today by priests themselves to talk about politics. It is considered absurd to advocate the restoration of Catholic monarchies or governments. It's considered prudent to submit to the Masonic order and raise the new generations as collaborators, peaceful collaborators with that inimical satanic order. And consequently, we have a distorted view of what masculinity and male virtue should be, because we're no longer being led by courageous men. We have been led by cowards for 2 centuries. I'm not speaking of the saints, I'm speaking of the general thing. And they may not even think that they're cowards, but since they're in a historical circumstance which they never attempted to break out of, or only lamented to being in, they have a priori, meaning as a presupposition of their whole life, behavior, and mentality, never even attempted the masculine ideal of Catholic virtue the way it was before the Revolution. And you have people talking about this, but not doing any of it. And some of the examples of our age that are lauded as true, solid Catholic formation are far from it, and in fact are pitiful caricatures of Catholicism. And the first I want to mention is the so-called traditional chapel. Now, what goes on there, the Mass, is absolutely wonderful and Catholic. But what goes on there as far as social life, in nearly all cases, is absolutely distorted. The first thing is you don't talk about politics. The second thing is you have a persecuted mentality. The group comes into existence because they feel they're persecuted and they just want to get away from persecution. And so it might start out strong in the beginning, but eventually they start doing things, don't attract attention, don't get involved in this, don't get involved in that. We have enough problems as it is. We're not going to do that. And so the corporal and spiritual works of mercy, except towards themselves, evaporate. Their union with the local church evaporates. Their attempt to convert people back to the Catholic ideals, Catholic, just evaporates. And the group exists for itself, and there is no criticism of the group. The total ability that God gave us in our minds of a critical use of reason is what he's saying true or what he's not saying true? Because we're in now a social context where we must defend ourselves. We're the last remnant. And so that there's nothing wrong with us. The wrong is all out there. And that's a grave departure from true Catholic spirituality, which begins like with St. Francis. No, the wrong is here. I have to correct myself. And that's why once you get into the whole traditionalist mindset, penance goes out the window, because it's everyone else that needs to do penance, not me. Care for Christ's kingdom on earth disappears because we're just trying to save our little remnant in this little corner of the world. And true youth, the formation of youth disappears because you're no longer forming men to, whether they're kids in your own family or kids in the local traditionalist school, to go out and transform the world. The Catholics of these groups turned into what I call the Catholic Mennonite mentality. Let's just go back to the olden days and do what we do, all closed off to ourselves, and pretend the world doesn't exist or something. We go into as soon as we get into that chapel, we're into an alternate reality of how to think and stuff. And don't you dare criticize me because I have 3 layers of lace and know how to swing a thurible. Even though I go home and I live more secular than a Catholic who goes to the Mass in the vernacular. And with the most shameless immorality, well, you've seen it exposed in recent news reports, there is no less immorality among those who say the Latin Mass than those who say the vernacular. And institutions can, on both sides, can equally and have been equally corrupted and infiltrated by morally perverse men. And if any families out there are surviving, it's with the greatest of difficulty, because on the one hand, you want to raise your children to be authentic Catholics, and on the other hand, you know there's so many problems and you've suffered so much persecution that you raise your children in like a siege mentality, like fear the world, don't go over the horizon, don't even attempt great things because there's just no hope left for the world. And this is not the Catholic religion. On the other hand, you have the parish of the vernacular liturgy. You've lost all sense of right, wrong, masculinity, normality, masking themselves over the place. They don't even know the difference between a winter cold and a deadly plague, and they believe everything they say on television. They follow political correctness, and God forbid the bishop says he doesn't like something about their parish. And the clergy, after the council, no longer preach the gospel. They preach the aggiornamento, and the only thing they fear is that word from the bishop. Other than that, they can do anything in their parish, and the bishop doesn't care what they do in their parish, as long as they destroy the faith and not raise up a good new generation of Catholics. And I have, in my religious life of now 30-odd years, I have seen the most vicious attacks by the clergy and the bishops against anyone who wants to start good Catholic formation. Absolute vicious attacks. And in Ordo Militaris Catholics, we have been the object of these vicious attacks because we actually promote the concept that Catholic men should get a good formation and that we should prepare ourselves to take back the world for Christ. And we're not we believe in the social reign of Jesus Christ because I want to promote G.K. Chesterton, Fabian Society, turn the Catholics into socialists by pretending to be traditionalists. Well, there's so much socialism among the so-called traditionalist movement that a Catholic from before the French Revolution would just be aghast at it. They're not Catholic at all. They're socialists. Most of them, nearly all socialists. And that's why they just love Vladimir Putin. And they're all behind his attacking evil Ukraine, even though it's destroying hundreds of thousands of Christian and Catholic families. So the fixation on the external, we've had so much debate and narrative about the aggiornamento, which is all externals. People have lost the whole sense of interior religion, making a good confession and changing your life and giving up your vices, which includes jealousy, gossip, slander, calumny, schism, pride, thinking that you're immaculate and everyone else is a sinner, kind of thing, and pacifism. I think all these groups, if you had to label one area that's like, whether you're going from the most extreme traditionalists to the most extreme progressive pro-Vatican II adjournamentalist, pacifism, they all agree on pacifism because they're all socialists. And their leaders are all leading the flock into complete submission to this satanic New World Order, either by actively participating or by tacitly accepting. And I have never stood for that. And Order Militaris Catholicis, we do not stand for that at all. And so it's not surprising to us that when we do all the kind of appeals to men to be recruits or volunteers and stuff, we get little or no kickback, because we know that the male world in the West has been totally devastated. It's been totally devastated, and no one even wants to restore it. And the people who are praised as models of masculinity are nowhere near that. And if you're told anything about the courageous Catholics of the past, it's always the Vendée or the Cristeros, who were defeated by the Masons. They never talk about the Crusaders who actually won. And that is intentional. And the people who do that have gone to schools or founded by the Masons or the CIA or both. And we at Order Militaris Catholicus Radio TV, AJ and I, we've discussed this now for nearly 2 years. And there's like been no reaction from the people who are doing this. Because they won't admit that they're wrong, because they're defending the last bastion of civilization, so they must be right. Well, they're not, because they're defending the last bastion of civilization of what's not the Catholic civilization, but which is their caricature of it, so that they can control, milk it, and make money out of it for themselves, because that's their livelihood. Serve Christ at their risk of a penury or death to advance his kingdom on earth, to do his will. That's not even in their mind. It's why, that would be like taking religion at its face value, actually believing the Catholic faith. I get tons of people, especially in Italy, saying, "Brother, why did you go to the Ukraine?" I went to the Ukraine because I believe in Jesus Christ. And if that's incomprehensible to you, I submit humbly that you have not begun to understand who Jesus Christ is and what discipleship means. He is God. He is the only teacher and savior of mankind. And he said, greater love no man has than to put his life at risk for his neighbor, lay down his life for his friend. And the Crusaders showed us that way. There's more than a dozen saints. I think there's probably 24 saints and blesseds who went on the Crusades because they went to help people they never met or heard of before. They risked their lives, and many of them died. And probably most of the Crusaders that died are saints in heaven because they lived what Christ said. And it was sufficient that he say those words. They didn't have to figure out some political reason for going to the Mideast. They didn't say, well, if I go to Jerusalem and fight the Moors, that will reduce Islamic power in the Levant, and that will increase power of the Byzantines, but the Byzantines are Orthodox and they're not Catholic and they're in schism, and well, that would be supporting the Byzantine government, so I can't do that. No one in the Middle Ages even thought that. Not even the papal legate who was at Constantinople and spoke with the Byzantine emperor, even though there was a schism going on. So the true Catholic vision is not at all being promoted by nearly anyone out there. And we need to recognize that if we're going to restore true formation of Catholic youth. And parents need to snap out of the mind control, the propaganda that's going on by pedo elite that wants to lead the Catholic faith into a satanic church, or just wants the church to revolve about them. That's the worst kind of clericalism. No, the church is to serve Jesus Christ. And you need to raise your children to serve Jesus Christ, not to serve the chapel, not to serve you, not to serve your political party, and not even to serve your nation, to serve Jesus Christ, to adore Jesus Christ. That's true religion. And if you're not willing to do anything for Jesus Christ, if you're not willing to go across the horizon, if you're not willing to risk anything for Jesus Christ, you have not yet begun to believe in Jesus Christ. And by their works you shall know them, says Christ. And that's what he's going to use to judge us, whether we have truly believed in his kingship, and served him as King of heaven and earth. God bless. Ave Maria.